All right, we're ready to get back. Dan Bellow has done a fabulous job of kind of setting the spirit. I'd like to make a couple more introductions, if we would. I think you're aware that Jim Stevenson has moved over to McCarthy. I think everybody knows Jim. And the fellow that's picked up a good share of his ore at Bellow's is Tony Mansourian. Tony, I don't know that everybody knows Tony, but get a chance to know that. And also a tremendous friend of our industry, and if some people want to get more specific about the port, we have with us Commissioner Jim Fontino. Jim? All right, so in light of the real estate overview and Houston overview, where do we think the construction market is likely to head in the next few years? I'm going to take and just do this little squiggly line chart. And believe it or not, this comes out of a professor at Harvard. And he says the most important thing business people need to do when they sit down to plan is develop some degree of certainty about the direction of the market. And he said there really are about 4 states. One is where you have clearly what direction the market is going. And in the chart we're using it, I'm showing them up, it could easily be going that way. You got your certainty that way too. The other one is obviously where there's going to be a little bit of a sawtooth pattern. The third one is segments going in different directions. And finally, you could be in a market setting where there could be a disruptive invention. This is a software company, a technology company, pharma. So how do we see the direction that we think the construction market will go for the foreseeable future? Let me get this right. We think that for the foreseeable future, the only question is the degree of slope. I'm not an engineer. Am I saying that right? Huh? Somewhere near right? How the trend of the line will be. And the reason we say that is, based upon what Dan said and what we see, that we are pretty much bouncing on the bottom for the size of an economy that we are, that we've fallen from $7.2 billion in new contract awards in 2008 down to a low of 3.3 back to 3.35 last year, and this year should end 3.6 to 3.7. But we think what's important is the trend line here. Why? Obviously, what's happening with energy. There is Stratfor, the great strategic firm on intelligence around the world, that has an expression, geography is destiny. And the fact that we are here in the oil capital of the world and in the middle of the shale play and all of that really plays to our effect. If you start listening on this shale, it is going to be the game changer for American manufacturing. There are 2 studies out, one by PricewaterhouseCoopers, that says that between now and 2025, shale gas will cause $11 billion in savings for manufacturing in the U.S. and create 1 million jobs. There's another one by Boston Consulting Group that says the shale gas will create 2 to 3 million manufacturing jobs between now and 2030. So we are right in the heart of that. No matter if it's in North Dakota or Pennsylvania, the main activity of that is going to be driven from here. And fortunately, as Dan pointed out, most of those can finance their expansion from internal cash flow. You know, you make this projection in light of all of the unrest in China, India, West Europe, all of that. But we think that there's inherent energy in the Houston direction of the market to overcome that, to overcome a negative election result, and to basically move forward. The medical situation, Dr. Wainerdi didn't talk about it. It's bouncing on the bottom. The reimbursement's unclear. But they too are going to have some growth simply on the way the population is growing. Tertiary care facilities are a fallout of population, and then they're going to have research facilities. If you look at the last hires out there, Klopman at Baylor and DePino at MD Anderson, they bring huge research backgrounds and have committed to huge research programs. I think it's Dr. Wainerdi has left, that's coming to take his place from Stanford. He's a cardiovascular surgeon. If you really look at what he's done, he's led to the commercialization of medical research at Stanford. So maybe Bio Houston, which exists on the old armory out there, will kick into gear. Then we've got the Port of Houston. Anybody wants to talk at lunch to Jim about it? It is obviously going to undergo a huge expansion due to the Panama Canal. And then we're bouncing on the bottom in terms of approved bond issues for schools. Back in the middle 2000s, we had bonds that had been approved and were being worked off at the $6 billion level. That's down to about $2 billion. We're going to have 1.9 in one district, and over the next year and a half or so, we'll see others go, and conservatively, we work off 30 to 40%, and then we've got the higher ed. So I think any way you look, that this kind of trending makes some sense. It's certainly bullish. It could be foolish. Hard to make long-term projections in an era when extreme religious beliefs have mutated human nature to where 18-year-old boys want to blow up women, not chase them. It is very hard to make a long-term projection. But there is one scenario that says we could be entering a period that occurred in Houston from the 50s to the 80s. And I saw that chart. And the construction market, for all practical purposes, went up slightly every year with almost an indiscernible drop occasionally. This particular one has more chance for hockey stick upside than it does for cliff downside, in my opinion. But I do think we've got a steady market ahead. So what kind of opportunities and challenges does that present? In the short term, we are going to face a talent shortage of skilled craftsmen. That's already occurring, and that's going to have to be addressed both short and long range. In the short range, and I think our bonding friends will say that, you need to be extremely careful who you partner with, because there are people that have loaded up with cheap work and they're not going to have the working capital to take advantage of this growth. So I think there's a caution there. In a little bit longer horizon, the next 3 to 5 years, what could this market give us? I think it could give us the chance to get away from the margin and fee environment that we're in right now. We are absolutely bouncing on the bottom in terms of what these margins and fees are. In the 30 years I've been privileged to be around the industry, we have consistently seen erosion of our profitability. GC started to give away pre-construction in the early 80s. We have labor rates that are probably 20 to 25% below what a normal market with people following the law would make them. And so you're losing the margin or the fee on that. And then we've got fees that we're cutting. Over the next 3 to 5 years, as the market grows, we ought to be able to do that. Secondly, by working with vehicles like ConstructionCitizen.com and C3, we can reclaim our workforce. And we all need to be concerned about reestablishing a trained, safe, properly paid workforce where construction becomes a sustainable career with a sustainable workforce. We've got to take that back. It's gotten far away from us. And finally, I think it presents an environment that allows companies to have their own succession or exit or whatever their strategy is on their terms, where you can set a course for yourself depending on the age and transfer your business either internally to family or the like, all on your own. And what we wanted to do to wrap down is just kind of share with you some tools that may help you rethink or refine your strategy. The strategy seems to have been, how low can I go? What do I have to do to stay alive? And I think this market, as it builds momentum, gives you a chance to create the type of desired future that you want. On your particular table is a book. I got the wrong thing. Technology, thank you. There's a book by Joan McGreta where she tries to interpret the strategy guru Michael Porter. He heads the Institute for Strategy and Competitiveness at Harvard. He's written 2 definitive threshold seminal books. Every MBA student has studied him. He's hard to understand. McGreta worked for him for 20 years. She's a former partner of the much maligned Bain Institution. And she wrote this book, which is C Spot Run for most of us. It is very worthwhile. His basic thing is the fundamental basis of above average performance in the long run is sustainable competitive advantage. He's the guy, and this is much better done on page 27, that first talked about the 5 forces. And if you listen, Dan was talking about the landlords coming into where they feel their force is stronger. And this is a good thought provoker for us. Next one, Candace. And in that book, he said there are 5 tests of a good strategy. Unique value proposition, a tailored value chain, not at the function level, at the activity level. Trade-offs different from your rivals, a fit across the value chain. You don't have any activities in your company that don't reinforce your value. And finally, continuity over time. It's not changing. It is well worth reading. It's the type of book we felt that would lead to some very good senior level management discussions around the table. Just some thought starters. And Candace is going to give you another one that we found. Part of what we function as is infomediaries, a word Renette Merritt gave us, where we try to scour the websites of the big boys. McKinsey and Bain, they have a lot of bright people, have a lot of time to do these kinds of things and try to translate it a little bit. It's a pleasure to introduce my young partner. Many of you remember her when she took on a second part-time job when she was finishing high school at the AGC. She not only finished high school, working full-time, 2 jobs. She finished her college degree with honors, working full-time. Today she serves as a valuable member of the AGC CEFP Committee, as a member of the Partnership's Economic Advisory Committee, and she has, for 5 years in a row, gone to the International Foundation Benefits Institute in the arcane arena of multi-employer defined benefit pension plans, where she is the chairman of the $25 million bricklayer plan. So this is my partner, Candace Hernandez.